Hey, what's up, beautiful people? Bonisile here, back with Foot and House Podcast, Premier League Week 20. And it's been a very interesting festive period in the Premier League. I went into it full of dread as an Arsenal fan, but Arsenal found a way to win out. They won every single game, and now they've won 5 straight Premier League games. And it seems also teams that were in the chasing pack or are in the chasing pack have done him a solid a little bit. Like everybody in the top six except Villa drew their last 2 games. Villa lost to Arsenal and then won their next game at home to Nottingham Forest. And City drew to Sunderland and Chelsea. And then United also, I guess they're in the top six now. Like they drew their last 2 games. Leeds and Wolves. So United is a weird one. We'll talk about that. But and Chelsea drew with City and they drew with Bournemouth. Liverpool drew their last 2 games, one against Leeds and the last one against Fulham. So Arsenal are looking good for now. Obviously, the next game is a very tough one against Liverpool because Liverpool is a team, I think, that will find the way Arsenal plays a little bit better compared to some of the teams that they've struggled against. I think Liverpool have struggled because they've played against teams that give them the initiative and sirens. So, teams that let you have the ball and like try to break on you. I think Liverpool struggles with that. I mean, I've heard Arsenal fans talk about how Arsenal is struggling with the low block. To be honest, I think in a league where you have elite athletes in all teams, anybody will struggle against the low block. And you will need a set piece to break it through, or you will need a mistake that you will then capitalize on to break through. So I don't think it's damning to struggle against the low block from time to time because I think everybody does. I think that's one of the reasons, for example, Manchester City, who are one of the most comfortable teams on the ball, very well coached patterns and ways how to break down an opponent that sits deep, and they've drawn their last 2 games. And actually against Chelsea, giving up higher XG than City were able to create themselves. So I think the Premier League has a mid-block, low-block struggle, period. I think teams are realizing in order to equalize the lack of qualities that they may have going forward is by making sure that defensively they don't take any shortcuts. They don't cut corners defensively. And the teams that do, West Ham, they get exposed. And we'll talk about game by game, but I just wanted to kind of like talk overview is what I'm seeing here. Teams that are drawing games and staying in games. And the example of this is Sunderland. Sunderland has lost 6 players to AFCON and they haven't lost all the way through the festive season. The problem is they've drawn 4 of their last 5 games. Their last win was 5 games away. So, but Sunderland is a great example of what I'm talking about. A team that, that is very well coached. They have a good defensive structure that they all understand and commit to. And then they build from there. But first game of the weekend was Aston Villa 3, Nottingham Forest 1. And this game, I knew that Villa would win this game, except something weird happened. They've been on a hot streak. I know the Arsenal result was a bit more embarrassing maybe for them because, it was a 4-1 drubbing. Like you didn't expect that. And even Arsenal, the most hardcore Arsenal fans didn't expect Aston Villa to lose by 4-1, a 4-1 margin. And it was not even a 4-1. It was more like a 4-0 once the second half started. But they get a consolation in like the 94th minute and the game is... But in this game, they did the Villa thing and Villa Park was right behind them and rightfully so because this team has done a lot of good for that fan base this year, winning 11 straight in the league until they stumbled at Arsenal and then they bounced back in emphatic fashion. I know the keeper helped them out a little bit with that second John McGinn goal where he hurts himself. I think his name is Victor. Big guy in the goal for Nottingham Forest. Nottingham Forest, after also experiencing a bit of a rise under Sean Dyche, they seem to have now been hitting a bit of a rough patch. So one will hope that, they find a solution, but I don't know. I haven't seen Sean Dyche with this many talented players in his team. So like this is one of the things I'm curious to see about him because he's always complained about like having less resources and that he wants to have talent on his side. And in this Nottingham Forest team, he does. I think this is the best set of players he's ever had to work with. but he didn't have a preseason with them. So hopefully, as the cup games get knocked out and whatever, maybe he starts to have a full week. I think Dyche is better as a coach when he has a week to work on what he's going to be doing at the following weekend. And I think he's not used to. I mean, obviously, he's played in England and played in the 3 game, every 3 days a game, but mainly in the festive season. Whereas with Nottingham Forest, he's also in Europe, and so like I don't know how much coaching he's had been able to do, So I think I'm gonna hold my judgments on that one. I think Forest should be fine because I think Sean Dyche has done more with far less. But what's going to be interesting is whether he'll be able to keep his team happy by trying to hold on to the ball a little bit better as well. Because when players are talented, yes, they'll defend, but as long as you also can give them joy when your team has the ball. So I'm curious to see how that goes. But I expected a Villa win here all day long, and that's what this turned out to be. I think 3-1 maybe was a bit bigger than the game itself suggested. But Villa win. Villa was the deserving winner in this game. The game number 2 that I'll speak of is Brighton 2, Burnley 0. This one again was an obvious one. No need, no, not too much to speak of here, really. If you think about the quality between the two teams, and Brighton, they need wins. They've been up and down the last 5 games. It was a lose, draw, lose, draw. And so they needed to get something, and they got City next. And, they're a good team, Brighton. But the problem is, for them, they don't consistently put teams away. And they're really aggressive with their press. And so, like, if they do that and they gamble, they create chances, because they always do. They create chances that they don't put away, then you're going to have a chance, especially if you can play through their press. But in this game, it was a total domination. Goals by Ruta and Ayari, no problem. Scott Parker was mad at his team for the output that they put in this game. He said he's been happy with the way they've played, except for this weekend. So he's been happy with the way the team has played. Those are his words. I think Burnley are in trouble unless they make some signings in January, which I don't think they will. But they're not too far. They're just 2 wins away from getting out of the relegation zone. I'm just not sure if they will make that gap. I'm not sure. I'm going to say something really, really maybe unexpected here. I think Wolves have better players than Burnley. And maybe after this weekend, like I said in my last recording, actually, that if Wolves get out of the relegation, like they escape relegation this season, I think Rob Edwards should win Coach of the Year, because everybody has written them out. They hadn't won a game until this weekend because of a team I mentioned about cutting corners defensively and their effort and the energy that they show for the game on game day. It's like this. And sometimes on the same game, West Ham will give you a little bit of this, a little bit of that, a little bit of, like, it's just a roller coaster. I feel for those fans and for that manager, because I think Nuno is a really, really good guy, and he tries to do right by his fan base and his players. But I'm not sure if the soul of the team is broken. Maybe it was broken before he got there, or something is happening at West Ham that's just hard to understand from outside. You can never understand what's happening inside a football club, even your own football club, because those are very protected environments, and rightfully so. But something is wrong at West Ham. But on this day, I would really have to just praise Wolves. They would consider themselves unlucky for some games. And, after also fighting for a draw against Man United, a game they could have won late, and then getting this win against West Ham, will give them a degree of confidence. And you know what? I think Rob Edwards, being a fan of Wolves and all of that, I still think he should have stayed at Middlesbrough, and I think he would have probably gotten promoted to the Premier League. But maybe he knew some things about the position at Middlesbrough, the size of club that they are at the moment, and maybe the resources he would have had. So he might have then had the similar experience that he had when he got promoted with Luton and then went straight back down. So maybe he thought, I'm better off going to Wolves. I have a half a season to try and see if I can win this opportunity and stay in the Premier League that way, because that will do wonders for him, because he's done the promotion thing before. And if Wolves also committed to him if we go down, we stick with you to bring us back up, I think he has a better chance of like being in that job for longer, because Wolves, and it sounds like he's from the area too. I think he might even be a fan, or if not, or maybe his family may be fans. I don't know. I know there's a personal connection with him in that region where Wolverhampton Wanderers are located. And when he speaks really well. Like he talks about, like, he's not negative about the view of how things look, that things look different to him. And fair play to him. It sounds crazy to me, let me be honest, but to believe in yourself that much and to believe that you can achieve something is something respectable, because nothing great happens without a degree of insanity. So fair play to him. He's now got a draw and a win in his last two games. That's 4 points after Wolves had been sitting on 2 points for most of the season. And now he has 18 cup finals to try and outdo. He's still like 6 points away from Burnley, and a further 2 points away from West Ham, and even 12 points away from escaping relegation. So I think Wolves will probably go down, but if they don't, I think Rob Edwards should be manager of the year for sure, no doubt. So 3-0 Wolves to West Ham. There's a lot of story here. Like, you can choose to make that one more about Wolves and more about West Ham. I think it's probably a little bit of both. West Ham, I'm worried for them. And it sounds like they may be looking towards sacking Nuno, which is kind of crazy, actually. Like the managerial merry-go-round that's happening in the Premier League right now. It looks like it's the NFL season, but NFL, at least the season just ended. So you're firing people at the end of the season with a plan for the new season. But Premier League's season is just going bananas. Anyway, next game is Bournemouth 2, Arsenal 3. This one was a good watch for the so-called neutral, right? Because there was this whole thing of like, yeah, if you drop points, City, like Chelsea don't have a manager. And obviously Aston Villa had won earlier on in the day to cut it back to 3 points. So over to you, Arsenal. And Arteta did a very good lineup, similar lineup to what he had done the previous game in the back seven positions. Ngapié stayed at left back. Big Gabby stayed with Saliba in the middle, at centre back, and Timber at right back. And then there was the big return of Declan Rice in midfield. So basically, in the back seven positions, Declan Rice was the only change, right? And then the front three, the only survivor from the Villa game was Gyökeres. So it was an opportunity for Martinelli to impress and an opportunity for Noni Madueke to impress. Madueke definitely impressed. He had, what's his left back's name? Truffert. I think his name is Truffert or Truffer. I don't know how to say it. Maybe French. He had the beating of his man, Martinelli, and Madueke, and was very, very, very much involved in the best bits of Arsenal's attacking play in that first half. But what nobody expected was Bournemouth is good. They're going to force errors. They're very good at pressing. And their results of not winning for 10 games when they came into this one were misleading in a lot of ways, because there are a lot of high-scoring draws away from home there, like a 4-4 away at Old Trafford and a 2-2 at Stamford Bridge. Bournemouth also crazy different team at home. They may have lost some games and whatnot, but they had only conceded 6 goals from 9 games at home. That's top-level defense, especially considering that they lost all of their defenders, basically. They're good ones anyway. They lost the kid that went to PSG, a centre-back. That was a starting centre-back for them. And then they lost the kid, Huijsen, to Real Madrid. And then they lost the kid who went to Liverpool, Kerkez. And they lost Kepa, who's now at Arsenal. So you can't put those players back in there. But like what I'm saying is their defensive work at home is commendable, considering they've lost a lot of really good players. And then they lost Ouattara, and now they're about to lose Semenyo. So the coaching job Iraola is doing there is incredible. So I want to start by saying that, and not make, the error that Gabi be too big of a thing. If Arsenal lose the game, it's a different story, of course. And yes, the error is out of character. And I think everybody who's been watching Arsenal knows this. Like, this is not something Gabriel does. But it happens on this day, and Bournemouth through Evan Nelson, have a 1-goal lead. I mean, talk about a gift. That was a gift. But the character of the man, the character of the team shows up within 6 minutes or so. It's 1-1 through Noni Madueke's good work down the right flank, cooking his man, driving to the byline. Cross maybe leaves a little bit to be desired, but hey, it puts it in an area, a little bit of ping pong. Tinelli's shot is blocked. It bounces back to Big Gabby, who hammers it like a center forward. It's 1-1, and we're back in business. And then the game stays this way for quite some time, and Arsenal are doing now a better game, even though Bournemouth, the energy of Bournemouth was giving Arsenal a problem. They were not as clean as they would like on the ball because Bournemouth just don't let you have a rest. However, I think the good thing that Arteta did here was to, first of all, go with those aggressive, high sprinting forwards up front in terms of, yes, you're going to, sacrifice a bit of ball security if you don't have Saka and Trossard next to Gyökeres. You kind of have like three guys who are all energy centered, but this was the team for that. Bournemouth are high energy, run, rat-tat-tat, like boom, 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 boom. To kind of go like for like was a very good thing to do for the first hour of this game, because he does make changes and changes the entire front three around 66 minutes or so. This was a great game plan for this day, even though, of course, Gabriel Martinelli didn't have a lot of joy on his side of beating his man. You know what you're going to get from Martinelli, though. You're going to get tireless running. You're going to get, repeated sprinting ability. And because Bournemouth like to play a high line, you're going to have to keep them honest defensively, too. So, there's a lot of, really cool things that this team was able to do on the given day. But let's keep it a buck. It wasn't like a straightforward win. In terms of Arsenal was just very efficient and they were comfortable throughout this day. I think it was uncomfortable in terms of the duels, outside of Noni Madueke and maybe one or two others. The dueling of the game was very uncomfortable. The score and the nerves as a watching fan, I was a bit more calm than I normally would be because I trusted the team and I knew what we had on the bench. But watching it, they were really in the contest. They were fighting for the ball. And they were outmatched quality-wise, but effort-wise, they were really right up there with us. And so I'm glad that Arteta went with a team that was different, especially in the front line, because you can't run out to the same guys every 3 days. Arsenal are going to have 9 games in January, including this last one against Bournemouth. So Madueke took his chance with both hands, and Martinelli, he had a decent game too. He didn't set the place alight, but it didn't do the things that you want your left wing to do in terms of threatening. But he was busy, he saved 70 minutes from somebody else. So and also he's out of rhythm, out of having not played through a lot of Arteta stuck with the same starting three for the previous few games. So, the last time Martinelli, I might be wrong, but I'm starting and having a great game against Palace. I don't think he started another game. That was December 23rd, December 22nd. So between now and then, he hasn't had a long run at teams. So point I'm trying to make here is tactically and kind of personnel-wise, Arteta did all the right things here. And Arsenal actually, when Martinelli goes off and the front three, they're leaving us with the lead, 2-1 up. So as a coach, you're happy with that. I think you kind of have to take that and be okay, Gabby didn't have his best day, but hey, you know what? He gave us minutes we can trust, and we were good with him on the pitch. We were 2-1 up, and you can't ask for more than that. You really can't. So then after that, you have Declan Rice, 2 goals. I have to talk about that. The midfield three of Declan Rice, Zubimendi, and Martin Odegaard. I can't think of a 3 in the Premier League better. I can name you individual players who may be better than 1 or 2 of them, or maybe all of them I could find in different teams. I don't know who I would say is better than Rice in this position right now. But maybe if you like another player over Odegaard, you might think they're better. If you like another player over Zubimendi, you might think that. But as a collective, so that's a very formidable unit. Arsenal are going to achieve special things if those guys play over 90% of the remaining games this season. If the games that they miss being like rest games, if you can keep those three guys available for the remainder of the season, obviously alongside some other key players, Saliba, Gabby, Big Gabby that is, Timber and Saka, you can kind of work around the other positions. We're definitely missing Calafiore, but Nkapia is also doing a good enough job that you don't like he can lock people down and he can run up and down the left flank as a left. I like him better as a left back. And so he's been good for Arsenal. And yes, him and Martinelli as a combo maybe didn't have enough reps to be able to get used to one another. It looked at times that they were standing on top of each other on the left flank, but with reps you get that right. And maybe when you have Eze in there and Nkapia behind him, maybe that's a better thing because Eze is more like Trossard. He will drift inside and then that will give Nkapia the time to go on the overlap. He's not as I don't find him to be as effective in Nkapia as an underlapping or kind of like inverting, even though he's comfortable in the middle. But I don't think he's as comfortable as a Calafiore or as a Lewis Skelly in the interior kind of zone 14 zone area in the attacking third. Big Gabby, redemption arc in 6 minutes. We do the business. And Arsenal, we're just really playing like a team that's really confident and full of trust within themselves at the moment. And fair play to Bournemouth for trying to make a fight of this, and they definitely did that. And Gyökeres, another game without a goal, but the weird thing about Gyökeres is that Arsenal win the games he starts. They've won of the 15 Premier League games he started, they've won 13. Of the 5 games he didn't start, they won 2. Now, I'm not saying it's because of Gyökeres only, but there's maybe here people are trying to make correlation into causation. I'm not saying he's the cause, but I'm saying he clearly is not hurting the team when he plays. You know what I mean? Like, you can't say a striker, not scoring goals is a good thing for the team. I don't care how many, how well the team is doing. That can't be a good thing for the team. But at the very least, it's neutral. You know what I mean? It's like it's a balance on the spreadsheet at this point because he clearly is doing a lot, and people like Declan Rice are coming up speaking with high praise and speaking quite effusively in complimenting him for what he's doing for the team. And that's, of course, you have to respect that. I don't think that's lip service from someone like Declan Rice to be speaking that way of Gyökeres, but I do think he has to start scoring goals at some point. Otherwise, he's going to lose his if he doesn't start scoring goals, especially if the other 2 guys get fit and stay fit. But we can't also be snobs and not, be appreciative of what work he's done. I think without him this year, even though he hasn't scored a lot of goals, I think that the picture looks different for Arsenal. Merino is good, but I don't like the idea of playing him week in, week out like we've had to play Gyökeres week in, week out. He's a good guy. He does a lot of sacrificial work for the team, which opens up opportunities for others to play. Of course, you want more than that. But right now, what he's doing is not hurtful to the team. So Gyökeres, I hope you get your goals soon, brother, because we need them. But right now, you're doing some really important work for the team, because we don't have another striker who can do what you're doing right now, like playing 90 minutes or 70 minutes every 3 days. So long may your health be continued, or long may it be protected, and your availability is key. But this game was the midfield kind of game. Like, I really liked what I saw from Rice, Zubimendi, and Odegaard. It's gonna be fun to watch them play against Liverpool. I know the Liverpool game is going to be tough because they're a champion team and they're going to show up for this one. I know that. But we're home, and I hope we will be ready to kind of give them one back, because there was that game over at Anfield was a bit over-indexed in terms of like we have ourselves to blame for the way we approached it. But I hope that Arsenal can kind of like have a bit of a redemption performance in this one and get the result too, because that will be really, really big for them. Arsenal hasn't won many games this season against teams in the top 5, top 6 positions. They've won. Spurs is not a top 5, top 6 team, so they've won against Villa at home, and they've played a lot of those games, a lot of those teams away from home. So like it was a draw against Chelsea, a loss away to Liverpool, played City at home, that was a draw. So Yeah, I mean, I don't think you need to beat Liverpool to make sure that you win the league, but like it'll be good for your confidence. It will be good for the vibes at the Emirates to beat Liverpool, and you want to do that, you know. And this game ends 3-2, but even though the goals that Bournemouth scored are not very repeatable football actions, really, like the Krupi goal, just a good shot from the youngster. But Arsenal don't usually leave people with that much room. And a bit curious to see if the game was tighter, if that kind of opportunity rises up for Krupi. But that they score within 76. So another 15 minutes for them to try and get an equalizer. But really, the Arsenal handled themselves very well to see out the game, um, and it was a deserved 3-2 win, and we move. And the next game I'll talk about is Leeds United 1, Manchester United 1. And this one, I didn't know what to expect because Man United had started to kind of change and do a back four against Newcastle and looked decent. And then Amorim went and did his thing again against Wolves and went back to these back three, sorry, and that didn't work out so well. Changing players around, moving players around in different positions. And so with Leeds, it was back to Amorim 3-4-3, 3-4-2-1, kind of, you know. And Leeds looked like they tried to match that because Leeds had been going more 3-5-2, but it looks like Leeds looked to match them, and the game was intense, which seems to be the way Leeds approach games now. They run at you. They come for you. They don't back off for anyone, really. Excuse me. And they've been on a run as well of like unbeaten for like 7 or 8 games or something crazy now. So like I will be praising Leeds more than I'm gonna talk about how bad Man United were, because I think Leeds like really played well in this game and deserve to be respected for it, because like when you are a promoted team, and I know they haven't won a lot in the last 7 or 8 games, like 4 of their last 5 are drawn. They're in these games. Sometimes it's a short little bit here that they could have won. I think they could have won at Anfield, for example. I think they could have won this game against United. Pirro, I think his name is. Like he could have scored, and it could have been 2-1 Leeds. But the big news coming out of here is the Amorim post-match press conference, and him making big remarks and getting himself the sack. And maybe he was asking for it, talking about people should do their jobs and let me do my job. I came here to be the manager of Man United, not the head coach. And, the sporting director needs to do the job and this person needs to do their job. I mean, he went on a rant, which is, Amorim has always been very good at public speaking, which is why I think maybe he was just asking to be sacked here. Like, it sounds like he started to maybe feel that people were trying to get too involved with him doing his job. You know what I mean? It sounds like he was trying to kind of protect the integrity of his work that he wants to do there. Now, whether he was doing the right thing or not, that's something totally different. And most will argue it wasn't working. It's not what you leaving the front office people, or the board of directors and the sporting director and all of that, the backroom people, you're leaving them very little option but to get involved when you are not showing results. I think in his like 50 plus however many games he managed Man United in the Premier League, in the Premier League table, he's standing 14th. In the same amount of time he was Manchester United manager, the results in the Premier League for all other teams, Man United stand at number 14. Now, it was looking better in my eye, like it was. I actually thought Man United, I was saying in my last recording, like that Man United looked good for a top 4, top 5 finish, like maybe top 5 more than top 4. And they were on course to do that. They're within touching distance. And I thought they were going to get, because they always spend money, I thought they would spend a bit of money on a midfielder and maybe, a central defender, because they're playing with kids in that position quite a bit. But I think, like even if they didn't buy a defender at all, like and then Maguire, De Ligt till the end of the season, and then you buy a couple of midfielders to play in those defensive areas, kind of like box-to-box areas. And I thought that would be fine. I really did. I really, really did. I think it's weird, the timing of firing Amorim, that United could have fired him in the summer. And I think United do this. Like they do this. They did it with Ten Hag. Gave him a lot of money to spend and a lot of former Ajax players and a lot of other this and that and Highland. And they gave him money to spend and then they fired him in the middle of the season. And the same thing with this guy. They should They could have fired him at the end of the season. But for some reason, this looks to me like maybe they were not planning. I don't think you plan to fire somebody. I think maybe there was a thing that happened that made things untenable behind. I don't think that the interview or the press conference was the first time something happened. I think there may have been things bubbling beneath the surface between him and Jason Wilcox, who is, I think, the sporting director, and I think they have like this Berrada guy who they got from Manchester City as a CEO or something like that. I think there may have been issues there that then led to the big kind of like, exit interview type thing that he did. I don't know what they're gonna do. It sounds like they're gonna do Darren Fletcher. For me, in Michael Carrick, a good option for at least interim, like Ole Gunnar Solskjaer style. Like give it to Michael Carrick to the end of the season, and then because he's out of a job right now and he was doing some really good work at Middlesbrough. Good football mind, smart guy, and I think he'd be good for them until the end of the season because I don't know who you can bring in mid-season unless, of course, they want to do a madness and go to Maresca and be like, yo, you want to come to Manchester? You already lived here once before and worked for the blue side. Because I think Maresca is a really good coach as well. I mean, he's just a bit abrasive too, though, if you think, Amorim was out of order for speaking like that. And I think Chelsea guy, Maresca is just as explosive with his interviews or press conferences. He can be a little bit off the cuff and out of script, as he has been accused by his employers at Chelsea. But the game that really was a lot more fun to watch was Everton 2 consolation goals, Brentford 4. Really, Brentford annihilated Everton here. I was shocked that they did it to Everton this badly at Everton's ground. Because Everton are usually, if not anything else, Everton can be very disciplined defensively. But Brentford were able to find their way through them, and a hat trick for Igor Thiago, who at this point looks like he's not going to be at Brentford next year. Because the way he's going right now, yeah, it's crazy. It's crazy what Keith Andrews has been able to do there. And Mehmet Ali, the Arsenal plug, who was the under-23 coach at Arsenal, he's an assistant there, and they're doing good work then at Brentford. I'm not saying Arsenal are the reason Brentford is doing well. I think Keith Andrews and his coaching team and the club Brentford deserve praise for the way they've responded to losing key player after key player and then losing their manager, who we all thought was maybe the big brains, for the footballing side of things there. It looks like they've found a way to get better with his departure. Not a shot at Thomas Frank at all, but like the fact that Brentford is doing just as well, if not better than Tottenham this year, even though they have less resources. Insane. Shout out to Keith Andrews and all of that. Like they've really consolidated and actually they've springboarded themselves from the Thomas Frank days. And Newcastle got themselves a comfortable-ish win. Like it was a close game until like late second half, 2 late goals. And but Crystal Palace have a goal scoring problem. Crystal Palace, you can trust them. You can trust them to put up good defensive numbers repeatedly, but they need help up front, man. 2-0 loss away at Newcastle is not embarrassing, but like that one, Newcastle has started to put together some win in the last 2 games, and let's see where that leads them. And Wissa is obviously starting to get more game time now that he's back and healthy, and it's helping them to rest Voltamata. And I'd be curious to see actually what Voltamata playing next to or behind Wissa would do for Newcastle. If they can prepare, if they're prepared to sacrifice one of their 3 midfield that they play with and play more like a 4-2-3-1 or more 4-4-2, I think that would be handful. I wouldn't want to face those two next to each other playing, because Wissa is an aggressive runner. It gives them speed in that last line, almost like Anthony Godin and Murphy on the right. And then if you have Voltamata, who is a threat in the air and a good kind of like guy to knit things together, he would like to see that. Not against my team, but yeah, I think it'd be fun to see. Spurs won, Sunderland won. Not much to talk of here. 2 coaches were very pragmatic, and both teams need a win like very soon. Sunderland has drawn too many games. Tottenham, they also just, I don't know what's going on there. They can't seem to find a streak of results that, like in their last 5 games is 2 losses, a win, 2 draws. And Sunderland, a win, first game in the last 5, and then draw the last 4. Now, Sunderland, I can maybe understand because they've, about 6 or 7 players away at AFCON, and they've been playing tough games, and they've still managed not to be defeated, playing against teams like Liverpool, playing against teams like City, and then Tottenham. These are all teams that would be expected to win against Sunderland, and some of these games are away from home. Like, I'm sorry, like I have nothing but respect, for what they've done. So 1-1, not much to talk about there. Fulham 2, Liverpool 2. This was a mad game. This was a mad game. Liverpool thought they'd won it at 93rd, 94th minute with Gakpo, and Fulham had other ideas. Harrison Reed thumped it from the most improbable position to score from. But hey, we're not mad at it. But Fulham I don't know. Fulham games are fun to watch. Harry Wilson, good kid. He's 28 now. I can't believe that this kid is 28 now. But like, Fulham have been on a nice little run. They have Chelsea next. They've won 3 games out of their last 5, and their last 2 have been draws. 1-1 to Palace and 2-2 with Liverpool. But Fulham should be fine. Marco Silva is, he's found a groove with this group, and when he gets his Nigerian boys, and that should help as well, because he's got a couple of guys at AFCON. I don't know if Chukwueze is gone. I think he is there as well, right? Like Iwobi and Calvin Bassey. Liverpool rested their number 1 striker at the moment. Isaac is injured, so Ekitike was absent for this game, but expected to be available for Arsenal. So we'll see how that goes. But, it was a good match week, with Matchweek 20 in the Premier League, and it ended in a madness at the Etihad. 1-1. Chelsea doing something none of us expected. No coach. They have their under-21s coach coaching in Callum something, and they actually had better XG. City had more of the ball because that's what they do, especially when they're playing home. And Haaland needs help. He needs help. Like, he does a lot for this team, but some of the other guys need to come to the party when teams kind of like gather around him. And Chelsea did a good job of tracking him, every time he would run, and he was trying to kind of take matters in his own hands. And he's going to be a problem, this kid. As long as he's healthy, he will keep City in this title race, like maybe even win it for them at this point, because no one else has a player like him in the Premier League. And Arsenal, like, this whole thing of doing it by committee is cute until it isn't. Right? Because you do need somebody who's going to be the guy. Like, oh, we can't get a goal here, give me the ball. And Haaland is a bit like prime Shaq at the moment. It didn't work for him today. This day, he hit the post with one of his shots, and one of his shots was blocked, and then, deflected, or bounced off of a defender's leg, and the keeper saved it. He is doing what he can to basically, him and Donnarumma are doing what they can to carry the guys in the middle in between them two. And getting Rodri back is only going to be helpful for City. But then they've lost, I don't know for how long, but their 2 centre-backs who started this game were lost to injury. I think more than the 1-1, I think their health is going to be the worrying thing for City. You can draw at home to Chelsea. It's a 1 billion squad, £1 billion worth of player in there. And Chelsea is a good team. Like, they are. They're young and immature, not consistent, but they show up for the big games. And so they did on this day. So I don't think that's the worst thing that happened here. I think the worst thing is if those 2 defenders are unwell for too long. So Manchester City, Pep Guardiola will be hoping that, those players are well sooner rather than later. And yeah, they're gonna like their chances. Arsenal still needs to go to Manchester. Arsenal plays Liverpool now. And City plays it before Arsenal play, so they can still put pressure and cut the lead to 3 points before Arsenal play again. So all is not lost. Arsenal have lost bigger leads to Manchester City. I think there was a point where there was 7 or 8 points clear, and one of the seasons City won the league. So I know this is a different Arsenal, and you can't give them many more opportunities to flop, because this team seems to find answers now. They are much more of a mature, confident, well-oiled machine. And as long as they have health to the right players, it's going to take some stopping to stop this Arsenal team. But Manchester City, they will still fancy themselves because they have a champion coach in Guardiola, and they have a couple of people who've done the whole Premier League thing before, right? So, and rightfully so. Until Arsenal have proved themselves to be worthy of being feared or respected or whatever, teams should believe that they can catch them. And that's what's going to make for a good Premier League winter into the spring season. Anyway, that's the end of this episode of the Footy Notes podcast. Appreciate the support. Talk to you guys soon. Cheers.